Welcome to Together Unprocessed, where 5 friends from across the world share real conversations about food, healing, and life. Let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Ash. How are you?
Good morning. Good.
How are you, Ash?
I'm all good.
You're all good.
Yeah.
So it's 10 o'clock p.m. there right now for you?
Yep.
How's your weather?
It was a warm day today, so it's still chilly, but it's a cooler evening, so winter's definitely setting in.
Yeah,
I think we're in
awesome.
for a long one.
Yeah, we just came out of ours, so I'm very happy. It's quarter 10 to 8 a.m. this morning. Cindy, you're the same, yes?
Yes, and I'm in Ohio and it is wet. Oh my gosh, all the fields around here, we have new lakes everywhere.
I do too in my backyard. I
Yeah.
don't cold plunge in my pod. I just go in the backyard, just like you.
Right.
Go jump in
Although
the little
it's
pond.
too warm now. It's too
Yeah.
warm. I have to make my own DIY thing. Anyhow.
You're ready. You got all your ice done. You're good to go.
Yeah.
So today, now that we've talked we talked about having problems when you're on carnivore, keto, and just a diet, and then we jumped into sugar, and we introduced you, and we talked about sugar, what it does to the body, what it does to our brains, and today we're going to talk about what a lot of people aren't aware of, is the carbs that we consume and the sugar that are in carbs. And we're going to break it down for you so you have a snapshot of, like, if you're eating a fruit or you're eating a vegetable, and not just any vegetable. And then we're going to talk about, starches and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to bring to you today. Which carbs drive blood sugar, which one does weight gain, and probably the most important one is which one affects your visceral fat. So, and if you're not familiar with visceral fat, we'll be introducing you to that today as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and we have different categories, and within the categories, we're going to start with rapid spike. What causes rapid spikes? And then we'll go to intermediate, we'll go to moderate and stuff like that. So number one, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, and one of the reasons why is because we think, well, we don't add sugar, sometimes we add honey, and sometimes we just do it with water or whatever, and that's white flour products. So within that, what is a white flour product? Well, you have white bread, you have bagels, you have wraps, you have buns, pasta that's made with refined flour, you have crackers, pretzels, breadsticks, and most breakfast cereals, and this is another big one because people think that they're eating a very healthy breakfast, is granola bars. So what happens in your body? It's refined flour has had its fiber and bran stripped from it. And when you have that, what's left is essentially a fast-acting sugar delivery system. So when people make bread or they make pasta, they say, well, I'm just using the flour and I'm just using water, or I'll use an egg yolk, or I'll use an egg. And what happens is they think that that's healthy. We're here to explain to you it produces sugar in your body. So with that said, blood sugar, what the effect is, you get a glucose spike within 15 to 20 minutes. It's an rapid spike. And insulin sugars energy crashes shortly after that spike. So if you have, a pasta dinner, and you find that, a half an hour later or whatever, you're starting to get lethargic, you're tired or whatever, and you're thinking, oh, I just had a really big meal, or I had a long day, and we make all these excuses, it's what you ate. That's what happened. So, you want to chime in here, Cindy, on white flour products?
Sure. I mean, have we talked at all, or I don't even know. I mean, in our group with us previously
Yeah,
about glycemic index. It's really, that's something that
we have not.
was kind of talked about for a while, and then it kind of comes and goes. So glycemic index is kind of a fun thing, and I was just looking up some images that you can look at and see how quickly foods go into our bloodstream. So yes, a lot of people don't even realize that pasta or breads or those kinds of things turn into the same glucose molecule, 6 carbon molecule in our bodies, and then our body responds to that in the same way. But some foods get into the bloodstream quicker than others, so it can create a faster, like an emergency situation for the body. So I always think about insulin as these fire engines that come out to get rid of the fire, and the fire is too much glucose in the body, because it's like an emergency. We need to have this level that's really important, and when we eat something that has carbohydrate in it, whether it's bread or pasta or a Snickers bar, is like what I usually tell my patients, is like, it doesn't
Snickers.
matter, like, but what does matter is how quickly then that gets into the system. So I think of the pancreas as like the fire station, and insulin as like the fire engines, and they're coming out to get rid of that glucose. Let's get it in the cell, because the glucose is flying around. It's not going to get in the cell until insulin is there. And then of course this whole thing about insulin sensitivity and all of that is important. But when you eat something that turns into glucose, no matter what it is, it's going to have an effect on the body of, we got to get this out of there. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that. So they think they're eating something healthy. And, there's this big push for so many years in the food pyramid for grains, right? So this whole thing at the bottom is still, all of that is going into the body. Now, some things keep it from going as quickly, whether, fiber and fat, if that's all in there too. But you can, easily Google that and see what's the glycemic index, chart, and see how quickly things get in there. But, all of these foods, I think people need to realize what it turns into. And there's this false sense of, oh, if this is okay, this food is okay. And I think that's the really dangerous part, because it's not. Even if it's a whole grain thing, whether it's, for years when I was a vegetarian, it was quinoa, amaranth, millet, these ancient grains that I thought were really great. But there was not only, they were turning into glucose, it was maybe taking longer for that to get into my blood, but the body still had to deal with it. And I ended up
Absolutely.
becoming insulin resistant because of it. So
Yeah, that's great. And I was hoping you would talk about the pancreas and stuff like that. And it's like, people think that, well, I make my bread and I don't add sugar, I add honey. It doesn't matter. It's not the honey, it's not the sugar, it's the white flour. And why, and to have, like, this is probably one of the most rapid spike you're going to get, is eating white flour products. And like I said, we're going to be breaking it down. And it's very important. I think that's great that you brought up the glycemic index, Cindy, because when I started my journey, probably about 12, 15 years ago, I learned about that. And I found it very interesting, because then I was still doing like whole foods and junk food. I mean, hey, I'm going to be the first one to admit it. I didn't get this beautiful body that I'm getting rid of it just by eating, whole foods. And that made a difference, because when I was looking at it, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to pick something that's lower on the glycemic index, that's not going to spike me right away. It was a huge educational factor in my steps, or my journey into eating healthier. Huge.
yeah,
And
I mean,
there's little tips and tricks how you can change that. Like rice is very, the gluten and all that, or that's in rice. You can do rice and you can cook it with like a tablespoon of coconut oil, and then you put it in the fridge for 12 hours. It changes it by almost half. So there's tricks along the way that you can do as well. So, sorry, Cindy, what were
sprouting.
you saying?
no,
I
right,
was going to
right,
say,
yeah.
you need
What was that, Ash?
I was going to say a lot of the things you can do though to reduce that as well is to do sprouting, even soak your rice a lot before you're using it, so you're getting a lot of that starch and stuff off as well, as well as a lot of your grains that you've got. Is best to try and do sprouting with them, or to use that sourdough sort of where you're actually fermenting it too.
Sourdough. I do
But
promote
it-
sourdough.
We know you love your sourdough, Kim.
What can I say?
Yeah. The bottom line though, I mean, even if you're slowing that down, I mean, it's still in there, right? The
Yeah.
carbs are
Absolutely.
still there. Your body still has to adapt to it. The insulin still has to rush out. And you know, the problem I think is you do that too much for too many years. Our bodies really weren't meant to be around this many carbs that they are now.
Yeah.
So I always think of this when I try to explain, think of the cell as having, and this is how I was taught, like in school about metabolism and everything, is I think of the cells as having doors on them, like there's receptors, and those doors have a lock on it. And the key to open that door is insulin. And so it doesn't matter. You can have all this glucose running around in the blood, and it's not going to get into the cell until that door is unlocked. And so the insulin comes through, you know, the fire engines come through to open that with the key. They've got the key to get this glucose in the cell. But over time, and I think this is what happened with my body, is there was so much insulin in my blood all the time because I was eating these small meals with, you know, high carbs pretty much for years. And the cells, I mean, the body adapts to whatever we do, right? So the cells are adapting. They're like, hey, there's so much insulin around here. We don't need all these doors on these cells. You know, it takes energy to put doors on here. So let's get rid of these doors. And now there's not as many places for insulin to come in and open that door. So there's not as much ability for that glucose to get out of the blood and into the cell. So we call that resistance, right? So now the cell is resistant to all this insulin, and then the body tries to put more insulin out there and to try to get into the cells better. But that's not the problem. It's not that we don't have enough insulin. It's that the cells are not responding to that insulin. And that's the big problem, because that's not an easy thing to fix overnight. You know, it takes a while then for the body to adapt to, like, once you quit eating all of that glucose, now it's going to take a while for the body to adapt to that. And I feel like that's ignored a lot, or people just don't understand that whole process.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, thank you for pointing that out there, Dr. Cindy, because it's an important part, right? It is. And so we'll also have a PDF to accompany this. We want to keep this within 30 minutes for our audience and ourselves, out of respect for our timing. And so there'll be a lot more in there that you can read and learn about. So to move it on, we're going to go to added and liquid sugars that a lot of people, again, are not aware what it does to your body. And this is the immediate spike. And I'm going to turn that over to Ash. Go ahead, Ash.
As you said, the sugars, a lot of us are in such a rush these days that we don't even sit down to have meals. So we do substitute with liquid stuff, where a lot of the stuff is where we're finding all these hidden sugars. And as you said, it's immediate spikes because we're not having that digestion in our that added food and things to help slow down that digestion. So it is that immediate effect. Things like we're drinking more soft, more soft juices. We're doing these fruit smoothies. We're adding not just one fruit, maybe 6 fruits. We're adding a lot of sweeteners and things to our coffees. The flavored yogurts, they just scare me, especially these kids ones where sometimes they've got 8 teaspoons of sugars in them. They're not even just the normal, just the normal yogurt sugars, or the dairy sugars, should I say. And then you've got the sauces that everyone piles on, the tomato, the ketchups, tomato sauces, whatever you call it, the barbecue or teriyaki dressings. They're just so
Yum.
many. They are the yum things. And then you get, and then there's those breakfast things like those breakfast Cinnabons where you're drinking them on the go, your granolas, all those things that are also marketed, protein bars, they're marketed as, healthy. And we're not realizing what we're doing to our bodies, because the sugar kick, is so quick, especially with the fruit juices. Some of them have got more than the soft drinks out there. And I did mention in the last one, just take
Immediate spike. Yeah.
yeah, and just take, and the way you can do that is just, like I said in the last episode, is take the sugar in grams that's on that, whatever you're eating, and divide that by 4. And you'll see half the time you've got probably sometimes between 5 to 10 teaspoons in just that thing that you're drinking.
Crazy.
With that spike, because it's so immediate, your body's not knowing whether it's a natural sugar or an added sugar or what kind of sugar it is. It's just recognizing that as sugar. Your body's taking what it needs and it's storing the rest. The rest is fat.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it doesn't need it all.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunately where a lot of our kids are going these days too. They're also seeing up their parents do it because they're on the go, and kids have got such jam-packed schedules these days too that it's just a grab and go.
Yeah.
Or if it's not 2 minutes, if it's not a 2-minute quick thing, let's eat it. It's not the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really important about this that these liquid sugars that we're drinking, they're stripped down of everything, and then they rebuild them back up. So it's like when you think about orange juice, you think, well, how can orange juice be bad for me? Well, I'll tell you, the first thing they take out of it is fiber, and fiber actually slows that absorption. So now you have an orange juice, and then when you start looking at ingredients, when you read one that says pure orange juice, is it? It's not pure because they've stripped everything out of it. So that's another thing is know your labels. And again, it's an immediate spike. So that's why some people, runners, they do it all the time. They'll take a liquid drink that's actually, some of them are formulated, and they drink it, and they have that immediate hit, and all of a sudden they got all that extra energy. Boom, away they go. That's by design, as in what our body is processing as an immediate spike in your sugar. So you have all that extra energy.
Yeah. And with that, Kim, you're getting that quick energy fix, but you're also having that quick down. So it's like you're on this constant roller coaster. Your hunger is going to return quickly because yes, it's filled you up for the immediate, but not for the long term either.
Exactly.
So you're going to constantly be eating, and you're going to go in. Despite being high calorie, you're going to be constantly eating, and that's where that yo-yo thing, because it's the dips coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, our liver converts excess fructose directly to fat. It's like a one-way street. Yeah, for sure.
I think an important thing to mention here too is whether people are adapted to burn fat or burn carbs. And I mean, this is kind of a big discussion, but I feel like it has to be said something right now, is that when people are drinking or eating these carbs all the time, the body adapts to whatever we do and whatever we don't, is what I'm always saying. And so anytime we have insulin in our blood, because that's the fire engines are out, right? What the other thing that fire engines do is they tell the body, listen, this is a dangerous situation. We got to get this glucose out of here, because the glucose will glom onto important cells and change the way they operate. And it like gloms onto proteins in the body that have a certain function. Well, you throw a sticky glucose molecule on there, now that protein isn't going to function right. So that's why it's trying to get it out of there. The problem is when insulin is present in the blood, it's also telling the body, listen, don't burn any fat right now because we got to get this glucose out of here. So it literally shuts off your ability to burn fat. So athletes and runners, whoever who are doing these carbs all the time, their body does not run well on fat, but they can change that. They can shift that. It doesn't something that happens overnight. Like it takes a while to change your body to be able to run and do whatever activity using fat, which is such a better energy than the glucose, so there's this false sense of like, oh, I'm going to drink this, goo drink while I'm on this half marathon or whatever to get this energy. Well, yeah, if that's the way you've been training your body, then your body really isn't going to burn fat effectively. And I've done this myself. I've tested it. I've run, different races, fasted, and it does make a difference, but people just aren't even aware of that. So just throwing that out there to muddy it even more.
Well, I mean, I'm happy you threw that out there because it's a huge part of it, and we are going to do an episode exclusively on that so people understand what the insulin is. Like you talk about the fire trucks, we're going to do an episode on that and break it down even further. Yeah, that's great that you pointed it out, and people like. Well, I'm not going to get into it because then we're just going to get going, Cindy. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to take a minute here and welcome Hugo to the episode. He had some technical issues, so he wasn't able to hook up right away. He's at his piece of beautiful property in Estonia. And, Hugo, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So, I wanted you to talk about this. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Can you talk about starchy vegetables and how they're a moderate spike?
Give me a second. Wait. Interruption again.
It's not a bear chasing you, is it? So while we're just waiting quickly here for Hugo, if keep in mind as we're going through, it's different levels of the spike in your body from the sugar. So we started with rapid, we just finished off with immediate. Now we're getting into moderate spike, and sometimes this is why people say, "Oh, it's better for me because I can't feel that spike right away." Don't be fooled. It's still turning into sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll start it, and Hugo, you can just join in when you get it. So starchy vegetables. Well, what is a starchy vegetable? White and sweet potatoes. There's no difference. They're both starchy vegetables. The other one is corn, peas, butternut squash, beets, parsnips, carrots when cooked. Raw is a lower impact, but when you cook them, holy smokes, and you can taste it. Like when you're roasting them and stuff, it's literally like taking a Mars bar and putting it in your mouth because it's so sweet. Yes, these are whole foods, but they still break down into glucose. They still, it's that sugar rushing through your body. It just takes a little bit longer. And while we're talking on that, let's talk about this. Personally, myself, I wear a glucose monitor, and every once in a while I'll put one on, even though the majority of my diet is carnivore. I do convert back to keto, as you guys learn, and when I go to keto, I like to have a glucose monitor on because I want to see what carb I am using at the time and what it's doing to my body. And another whatever tool I use is called the Keto Mojo, and that measures my blood. And I really like it. You can get this worldwide. And also, Cindy, what do you use?
Yeah, so this is something I just have at the studio here always as I talk to patients about this stuff and just teach them how they can know their own blood sugar. A lot of people aren't even aware how cheap it is to just see how your body is adapting to these things. This is just a cheap blood glucose monitor. This is just happened to be the brand, but you can get them at any store that has that kind of stuff. And you can just quickly prick your finger and see what the number is. So I always think it's fun to show this to people who've had, no experience with it. Because it's like, wow, I had no idea I could do that, So you turn your own body into your own little science experiment very easily and very inexpensive.
And it can be fun too. I mean,
oh, totally. Yeah.
The caveat I'm going to put in this is if you were diabetics, they have them all, absolutely. And it's that snapshot that you get within your body, and it's your immediate feedback. And personally, I promote a glucose monitor. Dr. Peter Attia. I mean, that's the first thing he does with his patients. is he immediately signs them up and gets them on the glucose monitor, because it's your body feedback that you get to see right away.
Well, the
And
upsetting thing, the upsetting thing is that those should be available so easily. I mean, come on, why
yeah.
is, I mean, everybody should have access to that without it. I mean, it can't, inexpensively and without prescriptions. Someday, that's my hope, is that is something that will be easily and readily available more than it is now.
I agree, and there is a push on, because like here in Canada we have what we call OHIP, and when you buy a glucose monitor, they're $100 and something a pop, and they last 2 weeks, right? So the only way that you can get them prescribed to you is if you are a diabetic, type 2, type 1, and they should be readily available to us all the time,
I agree.
because they're invaluable for that snapshot of what your body's doing. So with when we talk about moderate spike, because it still spikes, the glucose, it rises steadily over 30 to 60 minutes. So it takes a while to create that spike. So when you're eating it, it's like you're thinking, that sweet potato didn't affect me. Yes, it did. It's just taking its time to do it.
I'll just jump in here because I know you guys talk about it being fun and everything. In my household, it's a different situation. I have a husband who is diabetic on insulin, and I have a daughter who is insulin resistant. They do not find taking their blood sugars fun at all. It's part of our daily life. But yeah, they do not enjoy pricking their fingers and doing all, but it is a necessity. So with that being said, with the sugars, just so with that, when they do eat, they do take their blood sugars 2 hours afterwards to see that spike when they do have carbs and things. But when you are doing protein and fats and things, it does take longer to break down. So you need to then do that at least 3 hours afterwards. That's what we do in our household. That's what works for us, because you don't get that immediate spike. Obviously, we're talking about carbs, but when you're doing protein and stuff, just so that you've got the difference there.
Yeah. And Ash, thanks for pointing that out. I mean, when I say fun, I mean, I found it fun. I'm not diabetic, and I'm certainly don't. None of us. I mean, I wish nobody was diabetic, and I know that it can be something that's not fun. When I was speaking from my own perspective, I enjoyed it because I got to see immediately what was happening in my body, and I absolutely promote that 100%. So if people can afford a Mojo, if people can afford a glucose monitor, whatever, I say go get it. Because other than that, you're guessing what's happening in your body. That's
and I agree with you, and I totally do agree with you guys. It is nice to be able to see that spark and everything as well, but it's just like, and that's why I do understand it more from the side where it isn't available to everybody else, because it is essential to diabetics, and they need to have first side of it. I'm just coming from that point of view.
Yeah, that's great.
Always goes back to awareness, right? Without awareness, there's no choice.
There's no choice. Exactly. Zero choice. So, Hugo, are you with us?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one disaster after another, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding.
It just keeps happening.
It absolutely
today.
happens.
But this day, I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Well, you know what? The best part is that you're at your little piece of paradise, and that's the most important, right?
Yeah. It's pretty okay now.
So let's talk a little bit about slow to moderate spike, and that's grains and legumes. Are you able to talk about this one, Hugo?
Yeah.
Or do you have a bear chase yet?
No, I'm fine. The carbs and carbs present in vegetables, legumes and grains. They're just it didn't used to be that way. Those plants used to have a lot less carbs to them thousands of years ago. when we're going pre-agriculture, they had very minimal, like probably 1/3 of the carbs or less, maybe 1/5 even, and they were just sparse. You couldn't just find a starchy plant out of nowhere. You had to look for it, and you had to cook it and process it too, because it was just not doable. Otherwise, it would be too toxic to ingest. But we have selectively bred these plants over thousands of years to become so rich in starches, and now they make a big part of our diets too. Most people's diets, because we're told that vegetables, legumes, and grains are very healthy, but when you look at the biochemical angle, it's not so clear, and evolutionarily, like, it paints another picture. So people think that slow to moderate glucose rise is not inherently as bad as the spikes, which is true. The glucose spikes are the worst, but still, if you are slow to moderate glucose rise out of what is normal for a baseline for a human, then it can become an issue, and you can still have glycation. You can still have more insulin secreted than necessary, and just damage and inflammation done to your body. So that's why it's so important to keep that in mind. And another angle is the anti-nutrients present in these vegetables, grains, and legumes. They're numerous, and they have different effects, and a lot of chronic conditions could be attributed to these very specific anti-nutrients. The carbs in themselves can be attributed to those as well. So it's it's like two sides of the same blade, right? And it is better to look for lower carb content sources if possible, and there's multiple in the vegetables that are normally eaten. Like, you can have a tomato instead of a potato, right? Which is much better in terms of the carb load. Or just swap out the carb heavy stuff for the lower carb stuff, and even doing that change will make a big difference to your health, and you'll notice it at some point. And it usually takes a few weeks for it to show up. So if you don't get results immediately, don't be disappointed. It takes time. When you're lowering that.
Oh, there we go.
Oops.
It happens. Just to what Hugo was saying too is, like, one of the biggest things about grains and legumes, and a lot of people get into them. Number one, it's if fiber, like even vegans, vegetarians, and stuff like that, they have it for a reason, right? Well, the thing is that the blood glucose rise, it's got a slower rise, but the total sugar load is still very significant. And that matters. That matters a lot. I mean, yes, I used to eat a lot of beans as well, because I was vegan, then I went vegetarian. And the biggest side effect I found was I levitated all the time because of the gas that I was getting from eating all this stuff. However, as far as everything else was concerned, it was like, I mean, I didn't know it at the time, and I didn't understand what was happening to my body. I sure do now.
Yeah.
It's like just being aware. And really, that's all we're bringing to you is awareness. That's all we're bringing to you. So I know you cut out there, Hugo. We're just going to keep moving on, because this is we're way past 30 minutes. So let's talk a little bit about fruit. People think that, like, fruit varies in it widely, actually. Like, when we talk about fruit, there's different fruits that affect us way more than the others. And Cindy, I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think some of the key things we've touched on already is the amount of glucose that's in the food you're eating, or carbohydrates, and looking at the labels, or looking it up and seeing what that actually is does matter. So, when I'm looking at fruit, for example, I mean, honestly, my favorite food on the planet in my whole life has always been green grapes, horribly
Oh,
high in
yeah.
sugar. And I've tested this multiple times with a monitor, or uh, other meters, and it's crazy how that makes my blood sugar spike. But if I were to eat the same amount of blueberries, for example, there's less carbs in that, so it's just going to affect my body differently. And as I know, we're talking about how long it takes for this to get into our bodies. The bottom line is, if you eat it, it's in there. The body still has to deal with it. Doesn't
Absolutely.
just like go away. So being aware of what you're putting in makes a difference. And yeah, you can feel like the I can feel it in my body when I eat a handful of grapes, because I can't stop eating them. That's the problem. Like, I just can't even have them around. Otherwise, I'm just like I'm in trouble. Um,
My name's
so
Cindy, and I'm addicted to grapes.
I am like, I mean, I loved bananas too. It has to be the certain ripeness and all of that. But I can pass on a banana. I can't pass on the grapes. But it's worse for me. Like, I actually feel worse after eating grapes than I would after eating like a granola bar, or a candy bar or something. It's
I
bizarre.
believe that.
And I learned from years ago about the fructose being really treated in the body like a toxin. Like, it is 100% processed in the liver. So, the analogy that I got from actually Dr. Lustig, who has a great, sugar information out there on the internet, is that when you look at 120 calories of alcohol and 120 calories of fructose, 100 of those calories are processed in the liver if it's alcohol. If it's fructose, 120 of those 120 calories are all processed in the liver. And I was like,
That's crazy.
whoa. I mean, that means that the body sees that as a toxin. It's like higher
Yep.
on the scale than alcohol. Like, that's crazy to me still to think of that. But I feel like it's worthy to say, because so many times people will say, well, there's no added sugar that in that. It was just like fruit. I crack up. I was even at Costco the other day, and they have their samples, and here's this like fruit sugar thing, and like, hey, no added sugar in this. So they're telling people, people think that that's okay. Oh, there's no added sugar. Well, yeah, but it's all fructose, and your body's freaking out. And we can handle it in small amounts, but not in big amounts. And I was addicted to fruit because it's the sugar thing, right? And it would be hard for me to not have like 5-6 servings of fruit a day. And it's just like anything else that we can become addicted to. We have to be really careful and realize it's not just because it's fruit doesn't mean it's okay. So the lower calorie, meaning the lower carbohydrate fruits that we pick, it does make a difference. That's why they say, berries, or like grapefruit doesn't have as much sugar as an orange. A Granny Smith apple doesn't have as many carbs as a Honeycrisp apple. And then we're doing all of these things to genetically modify some of these fruits anyway. It's not what we used
Includes
to have years ago.
avocado as well.
Right,
That's a
right,
fruit.
right. So we just need to be aware that just because something is fruit doesn't mean that those carbs are different in that fruit. I mean, they are, but they're actually, in some ways, can affect our body in a more negative way than something like in pasta. So, is that
Yeah,
good?
100%.
I could go on.
No,
But I won't go on.
not good
Yeah.
enough. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing too. Like, I don't know how many, and I was one of them. And I thought, well, if I'm not eating a Mars bar, or I'm not eating Doritos, or I'm not eating this, but I'm consuming mangoes, bananas, and don't get me wrong, Cindy, I'm hooked on green grapes too. I love them. And
Yeah.
I'll buy, like, not now, but I'll buy a really huge bag,
Mm-hmm.
and I can consume those in one sitting.
I know. Me too.
Just,
Just can't stop. They're
yeah.
easy, great little packaged things.
Well, sometimes I think of it as, okay, well, I'm getting my fruit, but I'm also getting my water at the same time, because there's so much moisture within
Yeah.
the grape, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
I mean, the big thing here is fructose. You know, is sugar. Period. Like you can't take fructose and say it's not sugar, it's sugar. And that's what we want you to be aware of. So if you're going to eat fruit, and we're saying don't eat fruit. Oh my gosh, I mean, I love a frozen blueberry with whipped cream, like liquid whipped cream. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first went to do carnivore, that was my cheat, was frozen blueberries and whipping cream. You know, I was getting the sugar from the blueberry and then the fats from the whipping cream. So just awareness. That's what it's all about. And
So
here's
before you
another
carry
one.
on, Kim, I just wanted to say as well, we have been taught through time that it's 5 servings of fruit a day. So like even for kids going to school, they
Right.
have their breakfast and a lot of time they're having fruit. They're going to lunch and they're having recess and they're having fruit. And then they're having lunch at lunchtime they're having fruit. And then it's this constant, and then, it's afternoon tea and it's fruit. So it's this constant thing. So it's like you say, being aware and going from that five fruits to down to 2 fruits. It's just about like reducing that amount of quantity. So have the fruit, but maybe reduce it. And as Cindy said, reduce to the things like the berries and the things which are less of that heat.
Yeah,
That's what we've done in our household. Yeah.
Yeah, and I grew up with that, and a lot of my friends, they still do it. Like, and instead of sending a candy bar with their child, they'll send, an orange or fruit or something. And
It's still better. It's still better than the candy bar, but
absolutely,
it's not. A beef
absolutely
stick would be better.
yeah, right. And I have beef sticks sitting on my counter all the time. So so as we're going into this, like even in individuals, Dr. Paul Saladino, who I support, I think he's great, and I love it because he covers everything. And I mean, he does fruit too. And if you go and check out his stuff, he may, he promotes a higher percentage of grams for eating for the carbs and the fruit and stuff like that. But he also breaks it down a lot more too. So that's somebody you can listen to. And we're going to move right into the above ground vegetables, which is a minimal spike, but you still get a spike. And again, like Paul Saladino, and another one I'm going to suggest is Sally Norton. She talks quite extensively because it's not just the sugar that's in these vegetables, it's also the oxalates. And people don't realize, so what they call superfoods, like your spinach, your kale or whatever, they're not necessarily superfoods. And I mean, one of the biggest things that people come across with oxalates and stuff like that, eating these vegetables, like doing these huge smoothies or whatever, kidney stones. That's one of the sources of getting kidney stones, especially spinach. So to break it, some of these are fruit and some of these are vegetables. And what's just being aware, like some of these, they do cause a spike, albeit minimal. And as references, those are, and another one is Dr. Sean O'Mara, which we're going to be talking about in a couple of minutes as well. What chime in here, guys.
About fermented vegetables? Yeah, go ahead, Ash.
I was going to just say with the oxalates, I can attest to that. Before I started my carnivore way of life, I was going back to being plant-based, vegetarian, whatever you want to call it. So I was doing lots of juicing and I was doing kale, spinach, and I got to the stage where I had so many, which I know now, oxalates in my body because I got to the stage where I could hardly stand up. My knuckles, my joints and all of that was sore. And if you read Sally Norton's books, that's one of the things that she says, it goes straight to your joints. And what do we switch out when we go keto or vegetarian is we switch out to the green leafy and the almonds, and that's one of the things that she recommends. And I think that's what we do. We combine those, especially when we're using the almond milks and all those things.
Right.
And a lot of people do that. And like you said, just being aware of that, those are things that I didn't know at that stage. And if you are going to then include those, it is then best to try and do the fermenting, because fermenting does pre-digest the food in a sense, because it's breaking down those oxalates and those lectins and all those things to be in a more digestible format in our bodies. where we're making all of those things more readily available for us to then digest further.
And Dr. Sean Omar is a great reference. I mean, look him up. He talks about visceral fat that is probably the most dangerous fat in our body, you know, because it wraps around our organs. And, you know, it's visceral fat is driven by insulin. I mean,
Right.
exclamation mark, you know? And, yeah, for sure. And also, I'm jumping in different, because I just want to, we want to highlight, I'm going to say, like, we're not coming at you and saying, you know, do this, do that, and you better, you know, you better go keto and you better go whole food or whatever. All we're doing is bringing the awareness to you so that you can make the changes that you feel is comfortable for you to change. And just do a little bit of educating yourself. Do a little bit of research.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I just want to say, like you, Ash, I was a big juiceaholic, like, you know, fresh juicing every day, tons of kale, tons of spinach, all this stuff, for years. And one of the first things that came up for me and sparked my awareness to dive into this whole animal-based and carnivore lifestyle was Dr. Chafee's video, "Vegetables Are Trying to Kill You." I'm like, what? Who's this? What's this crazy thing? You know? And you know, that made a lot of sense. And so I remember when gluten first started to be talked about, right? Like that was kind of like, what? You know, in the Wheat Belly book and all of that. And then realizing that, oh, it's not just gluten, there's lectins too. Then lectins kind of came out more. And then watching his video, and that made so much sense to me that I decided to dive deeper. And that's how I found Sally Norton. And oh my gosh, like a lot of the stuff that I was dealing with, she explained. So for people who are having soreness in their body that maybe they can't explain and things aren't helping, you're finding yourself popping pills like ibuprofen or aspirin or whatever, you know, check into that, because there are a lot of toxins in these foods that nobody was ever talking about, you know? And you could be thinking you're doing something really good for yourself and you're not. So her book, Toxic Superfoods, was really helpful, along with Dr. Chafee's video, because I probably wouldn't be sitting here if that hadn't come across my feed, to be honest.
That is the exact same video that switched me from, I think I was on day 21 of my juicing fast.
Wow.
And a friend sent me that video, and I basically stopped it the next day and went into deep dive and haven't looked back.
Yeah.
It wasn't
total 360.
Yeah, it wasn't Dr. Chafee that changed me. It was Dr. Paul Saladino. And I went from Dr. Paul Saladino, then I jumped into Chafee, and I thought that's where I saw that, and it caught me. Like, vegetables are trying to kill you, and it just got. And you know, you can watch him, you can check him out. I mean, there's so much more to it, and I mean, and then you get into like Sally Norton and Dr. Sean O'Mara and Dr. You know. What's his name
Baker.
there? Sean Baker. Yeah. You know, the education that these people, that I receive from these people is unmeasurable. You know, it just changed the whole other way that I'm living my life. And well, all of us here.
Yeah.
So, because we could talk about this stuff all day long, and we do our best. We do our best to keep them short, but there's just so much to get out there, and we are all so passionate about it, and we care so much about, you know, our audience, about our followers and everything. We just want to give you everything we can and everything we know, and we try and condense it. It doesn't always work. So let's go to the last one. And it's no spike at all. What foods give us no spike at all? And, you know, this goes to like animal-based and fat-rich foods. So what are they? Well, you know, meat, fish, and eggs. Eggs have been demonized as long as, if not longer than meat. So butter, ghee, tallow, and olive oil. If you're going to cook anything, those are the 4 fats that, you know, personally myself, I recommend 100%. And then cheese and full fat dairy, and more in particular with the cheese, the older it's aged, the better it is. My favorite that I eat the most is Parmesan cheese. I love it. zero spike. And, bone broths and stuff like that as well. So the big thing about this is, you can be animal based and still enjoy some of your fruit, enjoy some of your vegetables and all that other kind of stuff. All you're doing is becoming healthier. And how do you do that is like we all talk. Now that you're aware of what the immediate spikes are, what has sugar in it, like our breads, our pastas, etc. This is how you can make some of the changes. It's just the information that we gave you.
And
Anybody want to?
I'm sorry, Kim. One of the things I always tell people is like what Ash was talking about. The easiest thing you can cut out usually is drinking those carbs. Really, start there. It's because for some people, this is a huge life change to even consider, but start there. What are you drinking?
Exactly, 100%. And how many times, like in our community, carnivore community, how many times that, like you said that now, Cindy, how many times have we been listening to people, and we were one of those people at the beginning. They say, I still feel off. Like, I'm eating my steak. I'm eating, this. And even people say, like, I'm eating like a potato with all this other kind of stuff. And we ask them, what are you drinking? That's one of the first questions we ask them. And 9 times out of 10, almost 10, they're still drinking their sugary drinks because they're not aware. Mm-hmm. And when they start cutting out that, they notice a significant difference in what their body's doing and how they're feeling. And I mean, that includes like if you're drinking tea with a bunch of sugar, or you're drinking your coffee with those really sugary oat and almond butter creamers. Mm-hmm. What are you drinking? So that's a good point, Cindy. That's a great point. Start there. Ask yourself, look at what are you drinking? Yeah. And hello, Hugo.
Hello.
Welcome back, bud. Do you want to add anything before we close it out?
It's a process. It'll take usually this takes, you don't have to do it overnight. It takes weeks, months, but you'll definitely be proud of yourself once you do it, and you'll feel better too.
Yeah. I mean, we're living specimens right here, bringing you this information. A lot of us had suffered from like some severe, and I call them severe because if they were left unchecked, all other kinds of stuff could happen as well. And we're talking to you from experience. We've all been there, and we've worked our way through, and this is where we are today. So I want to close with the visceral fat connection. And, we know visceral fat because that's the most dangerous, right? And it's driven by insulin. So the more you load up and all this other kind of stuff, you're affecting your visceral fat, and that's the most dangerous one in our body. So every blood sugar spike triggers insulin. So repeated spikes keep fat storage locked. Mm-hmm. And fructose from juice, dried fruit, and sugar goes straight to visceral fat via, as Cindy talked about, the liver. And reducing carbs that spike blood sugar is the most direct way to reverse visceral fat. And I encourage everybody to read up more on visceral fat. And also check out Dr. Sean O'Mara. We all have such admiration from him, and we do. I every once in a while I'll have my bread, but my bread is fermented sourdough. So it's still bad, but it's better. Yeah. And you don't need to count calories, guys. You don't. You just need to change what carbs you're eating. So if you are consuming a mango a day, think about maybe a strawberry or a blueberry. And with that said, before we close out, I'm going to go around. Are there any last thoughts that anyone want to put in here? Go ahead, Ash.
I think you guys have pretty much covered it, so I'll just echo everything you've said. All it's just be aware, as Cindy said. I'll steal her catchphrase there. It's just and doing the swaps. You don't sort of go cold turkey like I do. Just start making the changes slowly. Just swapping out the things, being aware of which are the hard things, and maybe cutting those out, and sticking more to the lower ones that cause spikes.
And just quickly, so when we start putting out our merch, I think that's something like what Cindy just said. Awareness, or without awareness,
There
finish
is
it,
no
Cindy.
choice. Without awareness, there is no choice. So yeah,
There is no choice.
yeah.
There you go.
And
That's
also,
powerful.
yeah, and how do you get awareness? Also, reading labels. I taught my kids how to read labels when they were really young, and don't look at just added sugars. Look at carbohydrates. That's a big problem. That people are they changed the label years ago. It was one of the worst things because it took people's attention away from the carbohydrates onto added sugars. That's not the issue. The issue is carbohydrates.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And again, we're going to have a PDF link below so that you're going to hear this episode, but you can also have that as your own, and you can start doing your own research. Hugo?
Maybe reflecting back on it, the added sugars are false herring. It's a red herring for the actual problem. So it's the entire carb content, not just the sugars they add extra. Once you take that into account, you'll have the solution also.
Yeah, great point. Great point. And so with that said, pretty much what we're saying is just start somewhere. You can take this information, you can do it slowly, just start. So you don't need to fix this today. You just need to notice and readjust. That's it. And if it's just one little thing, you know what? That one little thing is better than nothing. And that's what we encourage you to do. So have a great day. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you, everyone. And Hugo, it looks absolutely stunning there. We can hear the birds and stuff. I wish I was there. Ash, you get to go to bed. And Cindy, you get to go for your walk.
No, I'm going to do animal chores this morning. So,
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
right.
Take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.